Hello Warhammer Explorers, hit subscribe and stay with our legion. Your support is what lets me keep making these crossovers. What if the Emperor of Mankind arrived in Red Dead Redemption 2? On the golden throne of distant terror, the Emperor of Mankind opens his eyes and looks not at stars, but at a small, dirty world lit by oil lamps and gunfire. He sees trains like iron serpents, cities coughing smoke, and one doomed gang of outlaws whose choices will echo far beyond their time. He chooses to step off his throne and walk among these wild early humans to test if they can be guided without chains of iron and faith. He reaches into the warp, the storm of souls between all realities, and cuts a narrow path toward that world. As he walks it, the storm bites pieces from his endless light, and the sky above St. Denis splits open in fire. Night over St. Denis turns to day in one breath. Oil lamps burn pale beside the wound in the sky. It is not just light. It is gold, thick and heavy, pouring down like a river. People in narrow streets freeze. A lady in a bright dress drops her parasol. A newsboy looks up and forgets to shout the headlines in his hand. A drunk on a bench thinks, for a second, that he is finally dead. High above the city, the tear hangs like a great halo. Telegraph lines crackle. Glass rattles in windows. Pigeons explode from rooftops and swirl in mad spirals like the sky itself is shouting. Andrew Milton, senior agent of the Pinkerton National Detective Agency, stands on a balcony of the mayor's house and stares up with his jaw tight. He does not believe in miracles. He believes in men, money, and the weight of the law when you put a gun behind it. But the golden wound in the clouds does not care what he believes. God help us, whispers Mayor Lemieux beside him. Milton does not look away. If that's God, he says, we'll find a way to put him on a leash. The golden light tightens into a spear and drops. It falls past St. Denis, past the swamp and the bayou, past small farms and lonely shacks. The land rolls into wide green plains and soft hills. The spear of light slams down into the heartlands, in a field not far from a camp full of people who call themselves the Van der Linde gang. Horses rear and scream. Arthur Morgan is on guard duty, riding slow circles on his bay mare when the world goes white. The shock hits first as a sound, a deep crack that he feels in his teeth. Then a hot wind slams into him and his horse, almost knocking them both over. "Easy, girl," he mutters, dragging the reins, blinking spots from his eyes. The sky above the heartlands still glows. A column of dust and light hangs on the horizon, not far from camp. It looks like a storm that forgot to turn grey. Arthur spits dust from his mouth and turns his horse. "What now?" he growls and kicks her into a run. Back at camp, tents flap and voices rise in panic. Dutch van der Linde stands by the central fire, dark coat swirling, looking toward the glow with wide, excited eyes. Hosea Matthews stands beside him, older, calmer, already worried. "What is it?" Susan Grimshaw demands. "It a tornado?" "Not like any I've seen," Charles Smith says, eyes narrowed. Dutch smiles, that bright, dangerous smile Arthur knows too well. "It's an opportunity," he says. Arthur rides in hard, jumps off his horse. "You all see that?" he asks, though of course they have. "We're going," Dutch says at once. "Arthur, Charles, with me. Hosea, keep everyone calm. This might be nothing, might be something. Or might be the damn end of the world," Hosea mutters. But he does not stop them. They ride fast across the grass, wind loud in their ears. The closer they get, the more wrong the air feels. It tastes like metal and summer storms and something Arthur cannot name. something old and sharp that makes the hair on his arm stand up. They crest a low hill. In the field below, the earth is broken. The ground is fused black in a circle as wide as the main street of Valentine. At the center stands a figure, still as a statue. Dust and hot air swirl around him, pulling at a long, torn cloak that was once white and now glows faintly gold. He is huge. Arthur is not a small man, but this figure towers over him. He wears armor like nothing on this earth. It is gold, not flat like a coin, but living gold, etched with tiny lines and symbols that seem to move when Arthur's eyes slide over them. A halo of hard light floats behind his head, sharp and cold, like a sun trapped in iron. For a second, Arthur thinks he is looking at one of those painted saints in a church window, ripped free from the glass and dropped into the dirt. Then the stranger turns his head. His face is dark, strong-boned, not young but not old. His eyes burn, not with fire, but with a light that feels like it sees straight through Arthur's skin and into everything he has ever done. Arthur's hand goes to his revolver on pure habit. The stranger raises a hand, fingers open. The gesture is calm, gentle even. "Be not afraid," he says. His voice is quiet. It rolls over the field like thunder anyway. Charles's horse sidesteps, snorting. Arthur swallows hard. He has seen men shot, stabbed, hanged, and burned. He has killed many of them himself. He has stared down wolves and bounty hunters and worse. He has never felt this small. Dutch dismounts with smooth style, coat flaring, hat tipped low. Even he hesitates for half a heartbeat before he walks forward. "Well now," Dutch says, smile sliding back into place. "Ain't you a sight?" The stranger looks at Dutch. Arthur sees the moment Dutch's charm hits that gaze and just slides off. The stranger does not smile, but his eyes soften a little. "I am the Emperor of mankind," he says. "I have walked far to see you, Dutch van der Linde." Dutch freezes. "Do I know you?" he asks, sharper now. "I know what you are," the Emperor replies. "A leader who dreams of a better world. A man who will burn it to ash to get there, unless someone stops you." Arthur's hand tightens on his gun. Charles's eyes flick between Dutch and the giant in gold. "You're a long way from church, friend," Arthur says, trying to break the strange hold of the moment. "You fall from heaven or something." The Emperor turns his gaze to Arthur. Arthur feels like he is falling for a heartbeat, pulled into deep star-filled dark behind those eyes. "I stepped out of a throne built on the backs of 1,000 worlds," the Emperor says. "Your heaven is too small for me." Before Arthur can answer, the sky screams. The tear above the heartlands, still faintly glowing, twists. Dark veins spread through the gold. Something pushes through. Shapes like long claws scrape at the edges of reality, dragging themselves into the blue. They do not belong here. The air goes cold and hot at once. Horses rear again, eyes rolling. Charles swears in his own tongue. Arthur pulls his gun before he even understands what he is aiming at. The first creature drops from the sky. It lands on the far side of the crater, body made of shadow and teeth. Its limbs are wrong, too many joints, claws digging furrows in the burnt earth. It has no face, only a hole that eats light. Two more fall beside it. They move with a twitchy, jerking speed that makes Arthur's stomach turn. "Behind me," the Emperor says. The words slam into Arthur's mind like a shouted order, even though the Emperor does not raise his voice. His body moves before he decides. He finds himself stepping back, not because he is afraid, though he is, but because it feels right. The Emperor walks forward. Golden light coils around his hands, bright and painful to look at. The demon things hiss, sound like knives scraping bone. They lunge. The Emperor lifts one hand. The air snaps. The front creature stops in mid-leap, hanging in the air like a puppet with its strings pulled tight. The Emperor closes his fist. The creature shrieks without sound, folds in on itself, and vanishes in a burst of pure white fire. The other two rush him from both sides. He moves faster than Arthur's eyes can track. A twist, a step, a sweep of his arm. Light spills like liquid. The demons burn, break, and are gone. The tear in the sky shudders, then slowly seals, like a wound finally closing. The field goes quiet. The Emperor stands in the center of a ring of black glass. His armor is dimmer now. His halo flickers for a second, then steadies. He breathes slowly, as if the weight of air here is wrong and heavy. Arthur realizes he has been holding his breath. He lets it out in a rush. "What in all hell was that?" he demands. "Things that feed on fear and hate," the Emperor says. "Children of the madness between stars. They slipped through the path I cut to reach you. That is my fault." He looks up at the last thin wisps of gold fading from the clouds. "This world is young," he says softly, "but the dark already knows its name." Codex note: when a being as vast as the Emperor crosses the warp, lesser horrors follow like vermin in the wake of a great ship. Dutch walks forward again, slower now. "You came here for us?" he asks. "For my people?" "I came for humanity," the Emperor replies. "But here is where your kind has gathered in a knot of fate. Your choices matter, Dutch, more than you know." Dutch's eyes shine. This is the sort of talk he loves. Fate, freedom, grand words that make small choices feel big. "You talk pretty," Dutch says. "But folks who fall out of the sky ain't usually friends." "I did not fall," the Emperor says. "I stepped, and I would be your ally if you will let me." Arthur snorts. "You always tell folks your name is Emperor of Mankind when you introduce yourself." "It is what I am," the Emperor says simply. Charles studies him with quiet respect. "If you saved us from whatever those things were," Charles says, "I'd say we owe you." "We owe no one," Dutch cuts in, sharp. "But we pay our debts." He smiles again, more guarded now. "You want to travel with us, Mr. Emperor? You're welcome by my fire. For a while, long as you don't bring more monsters with you." "They will come whether I walk with you or not," the Emperor says. "But I will stand between them and your people as long as I can." "Then it's settled," Dutch says, clapping his hands once. "Arthur, Charles, help our new friend back to camp. We'll talk there. See where our paths cross." Arthur looks up at the huge figure and shakes his head. "Sure," he mutters. "Why not? Just another goddamn day." They ride back slow. The Emperor does not take a horse. He walks beside them, each step sure and easy, as if he has walked every road on this earth. The grass bends under his boots and springs back, as if even the land is careful not to offend him. At camp, the reaction is instant. Jack Marston peeks from behind Abigail, eyes wide. John stands with arms crossed, trying to look unimpressed and failing. Sadie Adler stares openly, hand on the pistol at her hip. Javier and Bill whisper to each other in Spanish and rough laughter, though their eyes never leave the golden armor. Reverend Swanson drops his bottle. He staggers forward, face pale, eyes wet. "Lord," he whispers, Is it you?" The Emperor looks at him, and in that look is a whole book of pity. "I am not your lord," he says, "but I am a guardian of your kind." Reverend Swanson drops to his knees anyway, sobbing. Dutch lifts his hands. "Everyone," he calls. "This is the Emperor." He laughs, a little forced. Claims he's here to help humanity. Saved us from some things out there. He glances at Arthur, as if asking him to back the story. Arthur nods once. "He did," Arthur says. "You ain't never seen nothing like it." "That armor real gold?" Micah Bell asks, leaning in with his sly smile. "How much you think he weighs?" "Enough to crush your skull if you keep flapping your mouth," Sadie mutters. The Emperor's gaze passes over them all. He feels them, not just with eyes, but with senses they do not have. He sees Dutch's bright dream, cracked with pride. Hosea's tired, careful love for the gang. Arthur's buried gentleness, wrapped in blood and dust. Micah's rot. John's hungry need to prove himself. Sadie's burning grief and steel. These are not the armies of billions he once commanded. They are a small band, running from a world that no longer wants them. But they are human. They are his. "Rest," he says. "Eat. I will speak with your leaders." His voice is soft, but everyone listens. Even they do not understand why. Later, around the central fire, Dutch, Hosea, Arthur, and the Emperor sit together. Coffee pot on the stones. Stars pricking the sky overhead, the hole now gone. "So," Hosea says, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "You're from where exactly?" "A future that may no longer exist," the Emperor says. "A time when your children's children's children walk among the stars. There I failed them. Here I have a chance to learn, and perhaps to change what comes after you." Hosea whistles low. "You expect us to believe that?" "I expect nothing," the Emperor replies. "Belief is the chain that men put on their own minds. I offer you truth as I see it. You may accept or not." Dutch's eyes flash. "I like you," he says. "You talk about chains, about changing what comes after. That's what I want. To build a world where folks like us can live free, not under some rich man's boot. The rich man's boot becomes a golden throne, if no one stops him," the Emperor says. Dutch grins. "That's so. Maybe we take that throne instead." The Emperor looks into the fire. Flames dance in his eyes like distant stars. "If you try," he says, "you will have to decide what you are willing to burn to reach it." Arthur shifts, uncomfortable. Hosea frowns. "What exactly do you want from us?" Hosea asks. "You talk about watching, learning, but you didn't come all this way just to sit by a fire." "I want to see if men can be better when not driven by fear of the dark," the Emperor says. "In my time, I built an empire with reason and strength. It rotted into a church of blind faith after I fell. Here, you still have a chance to choose." Dutch leans forward. "We're going to choose freedom. Freedom without order becomes hunger with a nice hat," the Emperor says. "You will see." Hosea rubs his face. "We're already in deep trouble," he says. "Pinkertons on our tail. A man named Leviticus Cornwall wants us dead. The law hates us. The world's changing, and we're in the way." "Then your choices are already on a blade's edge," the Emperor says. "I will stand with you as long as you stand with humanity. I will not help you kill for greed. I will help you defend your own, protect the innocent, and end those who delight in suffering." Dutch's jaw tightens at the word limit. He has lived a whole life avoiding limits, but he also knows power when he sees it. "Fine," Dutch says. "We can work with that. For now." Arthur looks between them, feeling a cold weight in his chest. He has followed Dutch for years. He has seen Dutch bend men with words. Now he sees someone who will not bend, who can look Dutch in the eye and not flinch. He does not know if that is good or bad yet. Far away in St. Denis, agents of the Pinkertons and men in Cornwall's employ gather around telegraph offices. Reports come in from farms and travellers. A spear of light, a crater, a giant in gold. Milton taps ash from his cigar onto the mayor's polished floor. "If this thing's real," he says to his assistant Ross, and he's with my outlaws. That's trouble. What do we do? Ross asks. Milton smiles, a hard, thin line. We find out what he is, Milton says, and then we either kill him or own him. He sends wires up and down the line, to government men who never admit they read his reports, to scientists on the East Coast who tinker with electricity and strange math, to a name he does not know is truly dangerous, a Dr. Edmund Roth in New York, who has written private letters about energies beyond the known world. By the time dawn touches the heartlands, the hunt has already begun. Up to now, a god has stepped into the dust and saved a small gang from monsters of his own making. He has offered them guarded help, while distant men of law and money move to turn him into a weapon or a corpse. Morning comes bright and clean. The Emperor stands on a small rise near camp, watching the sunrise. He feels this world more clearly now. No faster-than-light ships, no hive cities, no psyker choirs screaming into the void. Just fields, mountains, towns, rails, telegraph lines. A young species, still pulling itself apart over land and coin. Arthur walks up beside him with 2 tin cups of coffee. He hesitates, then offers one. Don't know if you drink, Arthur says, but camp rules say if you're standing around in the morning, you hold a cup. The Emperor takes the cup in his huge hand. The tin looks almost child-sized. I remember coffee, he says, from long ago, before I became a symbol instead of a man. You talk like a book, Arthur mutters. You got a simpler way to say that? The Emperor's mouth twitches, almost a smile. I used to be just a man, he says. Now most of what I am is what others believe about me. Arthur nods, that he can understand. Yeah, he says. Reputation gets you killed faster than a bullet sometimes. They drink in silence for a while. The coffee is bitter but warm. You mean what you said? Arthur asks at last. About helping us, protecting innocent folk. Not just killing for Dutch's big idea. Yes, the Emperor says. You're going to stop us if Dutch goes too far. Yes, the Emperor repeats. Arthur huffs a laugh. That I got to see. Down in Valentine, the first rumors have already started. A ranch hand tells a bartender about a giant made of gold walking with outlaws. A train conductor passes the story to passengers, adding wings and beams of light. By noon, someone in town is already carving a crude drawing into a table. A tall figure with a circle behind his head and a gun in one hand. Later that day, they ride into town. Dutch says they must act natural. Keep moving. Do not let the law see them flinch. The Emperor agrees to hide his light as best he can. He pulls his power tight around himself. The halo dims, shrinks, becomes just a faint ring. The gold of his armor dulls to something closer to brass. He pulls a long coat around his shoulders. He still looks like no man anyone has ever seen. But at least he does not shine. They tie their horses outside the saloon. People stare. The Emperor's shadow falls across the street like a banner. Remember, Dutch murmurs, we're here to talk to the banker about that loan. Easy in, easy out. Sure, Arthur mutters. Easy. Inside, the smell of smoke and cheap whiskey hits them. The piano player stops mid-note when the Emperor steps in. Cards pause in mid-air. Glasses stop halfway to mouths. The Emperor's eyes sweep the room. He sees fear, curiosity, greed, and a dozen small cruelties clinging to the souls here. He also sees tired kindness, dull hope, and the simple wish to live. He gives a small nod. Be at peace, he says quietly. Men who did not know they were tense let out breaths. Dutch goes to do his talking. Hosea joins, his old con man charm smoothing edges. Arthur and the Emperor stand near the bar. A drunk stumbles up, peering at the Emperor. You an angel, he slurs. No, the Emperor says. I am a man who has made many mistakes. Huh, the drunk says. You and me both then. He laughs and wanders off. For a moment, Arthur almost forgets the danger. It feels almost normal in a way. Just another strange day. Then the door opens. 2 men in neat coats and hats walk in. Not locals. Clean boots, hard eyes, Pinkertons. Arthur swears under his breath. His hand drops near his gun. The Emperor feels the sharp intent in the air even before he sees them. These men are dangerous, not because of strength, but because of the chain they serve. Law twisted around money. Agent Milton steps into the light and scans the room. He has seen sketches now, heard reports. A giant in gold with a crown of light. He is not sure what to expect. He is sure he will handle it. His gaze hits the Emperor and stops. For a heartbeat, something like fear flickers in Milton's eyes. He sees not just the coat and big frame, but the way light bends near him. The way men around him stand a little straighter without knowing why. Then Milton's face smooths. He smiles. Morning, gentlemen, he says, loud enough for the room. Name's Milton. Pinkerton Detective Agency. I'm looking for some folks. Maybe you've seen them. Dutch's jaw tightens. Hosea's back stiffens. Arthur feels the Emperor's presence beside him, calm as a mountain. What folks? The Emperor asks. Milton turns to him, sizing him up. Outlaws, Milton says. Call themselves the Van der Linde gang. Robbers, murderers. Folks who think the rules don't apply to them. You know the type? I know men who kill because the world gave them no other tools, the Emperor says, and men who kill because it pleases them. Which kind are you hunting? Milton's smile gets thinner. Last I checked, Milton says, the law doesn't care why you kill, just that you did. The law is written by men in power, the Emperor says. Power is not always wisdom. Milton eyes him. You talk real fancy for a man in a coat too small for him, he says. You with them? He flicks his gaze to Dutch, just enough to make the point. The room holds its breath. Dutch opens his mouth. The Emperor raises a hand first. I am with humanity, the Emperor says. I will stand with any man or woman who acts to protect the innocent and break unjust chains. I will stand against any who harm the weak for profit or pride. Milton's gaze sharpens. He hears the words he has spent his life saying in his own way, turned inside out. Sounds to me like you're saying you stand against me, Milton says softly. The Emperor looks at him, really looks, and Milton feels like he is sitting in a chair with his whole life on the table. You were a boy once who believed the badge meant something pure, the Emperor says. Now you work for men like Cornwall and call it justice. You still tell yourself the same story. You are wrong, but you could stop. A flush rises on Milton's neck. The crowd murmurs. Arthur has seen Dutch cut men with words. He has never seen anyone cut a lawman like that in front of a whole room. Milton steps closer, eyes hard. Here's how this works, Milton says. You and your friends are going to come answer some questions. You're going to tell me everything you know about Dutch van der Linde, or I'm going to make trouble for every poor bastard who gives you the time of day. I can do that. That's the law. The Emperor's hand twitches. For a moment, Arthur feels a pressure in the air, like a storm wanting to break. If the Emperor unleashes what Arthur saw in the field, these men could die before they even blink. The saloon, the town, might burn, but the Emperor does not move. Your law is a knife pressed against the throat of the weak, he says. I have seen empires built on such knives. They always fall, and they always drown in blood first. Milton's hand drops to the gun at his hip. Last chance, Milton says. Dutch's voice cuts in, smooth and bright. Now, Dutch says, stepping out with his hands open. No need for all this. We're just simple folk having a drink. No trouble here. Milton's eyes flick to Dutch, then back to the Emperor. Maybe not today, Milton says, but soon. I got a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of each other. He tips his hat, never taking his eyes off the Emperor. Enjoy your drink, Milton says. Angel. He and Ross leave. The saloon breathes again. You should have killed him, Bill says bluntly. Maybe, Arthur mutters. But half the town would have died too, far as I can tell. The Emperor stares at the swinging doors, jaw tight. I will not turn this world into ash to win a small fight, he says. Not again. They leave Valentine fast. That night Dutch calls a meeting under the trees at Horseshoe Overlook. Lanterns swing from branches. The gang gathers. The Emperor stands a little apart, watching. We can't stay here, Dutch says. Law's on us. Cornwall's on us. Now we got this Milton sniffing round, and he's seen our friend. He nods at the Emperor. We move camp, Hosea says. Lemoyne, south. Less law, more swamps, more places to hide. We ain't hiding, Dutch snaps. We're regrouping. There's a difference. Sadie crosses her arms. Call it what you like, long as we ain't sitting here waiting to be hanged. Voices rise. Fear, anger, stubborn pride. The Emperor steps forward. Move south, he says. The man Milton will not stop. He will bring more men, more guns, more chains. In the swamps, you can scatter, confuse them. You can also help those who are already crushed by your nation's heel. Help? Micah snorts. We ain't charity workers. We're outlaws. You were peasants once, where I come from, the Emperor says. Farmers, labourers, small men and women lost in the gears of greater powers. I made warriors of them. You could be more than thieves. We steal from the rich, Dutch says. We give to we give to ourselves. But we ain't the worst folk in this country. You could protect people instead of just robbing them, the Emperor says. We do protect them, Dutch flares. From men like Cornwall, from the law. We're all that stands between the poor and a world that wants them used up and thrown away. The poor still starve, the Emperor says calmly. The world still turns. Arthur steps between them, raising his hands. Enough, Arthur says. We can argue later. Right now we need a plan. Hosea nods. Camp in Lemoyne, he repeats. We play the families against each other. Grey and Braithwaite. Old money, old hate. Plenty of cash to be had. Old hate means new graves, the Emperor says. You got a better idea? Hosea asks. The Emperor thinks for a moment. His mind stretches out over the land, feeling threads of fate tug and twist. There is a city to the southeast, he says slowly. Saint Denis. It is a machine, a place where money flows like blood, where men like Cornwall are strongest, where your lawmen's masters live. Saint Denis will eat us alive, Arthur says. We don't belong there. You don't belong anywhere anymore, the Emperor replies gently. This country has decided that. So choose a place where your choices can matter. Dutch's eyes shine again. Big city, big score, big stage. See? Dutch says, pointing at the Emperor. He gets it. We go south. Lemoyne first, then Saint Denis. One last job, one big take. Then we're gone. Tahiti. Freedom. The word Tahiti hangs in the air like a charm. The Emperor tastes all the hopeless dreams wrapped around it. He knows that place, in another name, on another world. Paradise sold to tired men who do not see the trap. I will go with you, the Emperor says, but hear me. I will not help you slaughter whole families for money. I will not help you build your freedom on the bones of children. Dutch bristles. You don't get to tell me. I do, the Emperor says, and his voice is not loud, but it is final. Because if you try, I will stop you. Silence. Arthur feels something crack, very small, between Dutch and this new giant, a tiny fracture line in a stone that has not yet broken. All right, Dutch says at last, through clenched teeth. We'll keep your rules in mind, for now. They move camp. The journey south is hot and slow. Mosquitoes, mud, thick trees. The Emperor walks at the head of the line like a beacon. Sometimes his armor shines faintly in the gloom, casting soft gold on the faces of tired men and women. In Lemoyne, the war between the Grey and Braithwaite families plays out much as it would have. Dutch still tries to play both sides. Hosea still works his quiet schemes. Arthur still sees boys with rifles and old men with bitter eyes. Slavery still hangs in the air like a ghost. The Emperor watches it all. He stands on the porch of the Grey mansion when shots ring out in Rhodes. He sees Sean Maguire die, bright laughter cut short. He feels Arthur's grief like a small, sharp stone. He watches Dutch's eyes grow colder. At the Braithwaite plantation, when the flames rise, the Emperor acts. The gang has captured Catherine Braithwaite. Dutch wants to drag her into the burning house, to watch her legacy burn around her. She took Jack, Abigail sobs. She took my boy. She'll pay, Bill growls. The Emperor steps between Dutch and the old woman. No, the Emperor says. Get out of the way, Dutch snaps. You heard what she did. She sold a child. She will answer for that, the Emperor says. But not like this. He looks at Catherine Braithwaite, sees the rot in her soul, the long line of cruelty, sees the small, faint ember that still remembers better days. You will live, he tells her. You will walk into the ruins of your house and see what you have made. You will have nothing but your memories. That will hurt more than fire. Catherine spits at his feet. You know nothing, she hisses. I know everything, he says quietly. That is my curse. Dutch's eyes burn. You're weak, he says. Mercy for her, after all she's done. Mercy is not weakness, the Emperor says. It is a weapon you never learn to use. Micah laughs. Listen to him preach, he says. We should have burned the old witch. Arthur stands with his jaw tight. He hates Catherine Braithwaite. He also hates the idea of pushing an old woman into a fire. He is relieved, and he is ashamed of that relief. Jack is still gone. Angelo Bronte still has him in St. Denis. Dutch still leads them into the city. But something has changed. Word of the Golden Giant travels faster than the gang. By the time they reach St. Denis, people whisper about an angel of the outlaws. Some say he heals the sick. Some say he killed a whole company of soldiers with a word. None of the stories are quite true, but all of them circle the truth that there is something new in the world. In a shaded room above a workshop, Dr. Edmund Roth reads the reports with shaking hands. He is a thin man with round glasses and dark ink stains on his fingers. He has spent years studying electricity, magnetism, the strange effects of storms on the human mind. He has written about fields of thought and energies that cling to men like ghosts. Most people call him a crank. Now he reads a witness account of a man who glowed, who stepped out of a crater, who burned monsters that did not belong in this world. What if it's true? His assistant whispers. Oh, it's true, Roth says, eyes shining. And if it is, then this Emperor is a source, a living node of power. If we can bind him, we can tap that power. Imagine it. Endless light, machines that think, messages sent without wires. We could drag the future into the present. Is that wise? His assistant asks. Roth smiles, hungry. Wisdom is the luxury of men who have already changed the world, he says. We don't have that luxury. He begins to sketch designs on his desk, coils, wires, iron cages, a device that might not look like much, but that will hum with frequencies this world has never heard. He writes a letter to Milton. I believe I can give you what you want, Roth writes. A way to hurt your angel, a way to hold him. Back with the gang, the Emperor and Arthur walk along the streets of St. Denis. Smoke from factories curls into the sky. Electric lights flicker on street corners. Men in suits walk fast, eyes on their own business. Poor children play in alleys, clothes thin, faces sharp. This place, Arthur mutters, it ain't natural. It is very natural, the Emperor says. It is what happens when men build without looking at the foundation. They stack bricks of greed until the whole thing sways. And what did you build? Arthur asks. A palace made of human will, the Emperor says. An empire that reached across the stars. I told myself it was for their good, that I knew better than all of them. Did you? Arthur asks. The Emperor looks at the smokestacks, the rich houses, the workers in the street. No, he says quietly. They get Jack back from Bronte, much as they would have. The Emperor stands behind Dutch during the handover, towering over the small Italian crime lord. Bronte bows and smiles, but his eyes flick to the giant with cold calculation. Who is your friend? Bronte asks. A guardian angel, Dutch says lightly. Bronte's smile widens. We could use more angels in this city, he says. Men like you, like him. We could do great things together. You fight. I provide opportunity. I will not be your weapon, the Emperor says. Bronte raises his hands. Of course, he says. No offense meant. He's already thinking of ways to turn this new piece on the board. The Emperor feels his mind tug at the edges of fate and lets it go. That night, on the riverboat, Dutch's plan to rob the rich goes off the rails. The Emperor could crush every guard on the ship in a heartbeat. He could bend their minds, stop their hearts, turn guns to dust. He does not. He uses enough, just enough. When a guard raises his rifle toward a cowering servant, the Emperor's hand flicks and the gun bends like clay. When another tries to fire into the crowd, the Emperor's voice booms in a single word, stop, and the man freezes, eyes wide, body locked. But bullets still fly, men still die, blood still hits the polished wood. Arthur sees that even with a god on their side, chaos does not go away. It just gets louder. Later, back at camp, the gang argues. We could have taken the boat clean, Bill complains, if he'd just let loose. You want to see what happens when he lets loose? Arthur snaps. You saw that field. You want that in the middle of a city. Maybe that's what this place needs, Micah says. A little holy fire. He ain't wrong, Dutch muses. Sometimes you gotta burn something down to build something better. The Emperor stands at the edge of the firelight. I have burned worlds, he says. I have watched cities fall so that my armies could march. I told myself it was for the greater good. Do not ask me to do it again for a pile of money and a ship to Tahiti. Always Tahiti with you, Sadie scoffs. Dutch laughs, but there's a sharp edge to it now. You judge us, Dutch says to the Emperor, but you did worse, by your own words. What gives you the right to stand here and tell us how to live? The fact that I know exactly where your road ends, the Emperor replies, and I would spare these people that fate. Hosea steps between them, tired. We're all trying to survive here, Hosea says. Some of us with more flair than others. We can't fight the whole world, Dutch. We sure as hell can't fight the law, Cornwall, Bronte, and this man. You can fight the law, the Emperor says calmly. You cannot fight the tide of a whole age. The world is changing. Your kind of life is dying. You must decide if you will die with it or bend without breaking. Bend for who? Dutch demands. Cornwall, men like him. No, the Emperor says. For the children, for Jack, for the ones not yet born. Change for them. Dutch turns away, hands clenched. Enough lectures, he says. We got business to handle. One more job. Then we're free. The alarm comes soon after. Not from the law, not yet. From something stranger. One night, as the gang sleeps in their Saint Denis hideout, the Emperor jolts awake. The air hums. His skin prickles. It feels like someone is plucking the strings of reality itself nearby. He stands, steps out into the dark. Across the city, in an old warehouse by the river, Dr. Roth flips a switch. A cage of iron and copper hums. Coils glow dull red. In the center, a test rat twitches, then goes limp. Field stable, Roth murmurs, scribbling notes. Subject's brain activity changed. Interesting, very interesting. He has been using weak echoes of the Emperor's presence, captured in strange, sensitive wires placed near recent miracle sites. Now he is ready to try the full strength. Milton stands nearby, arms crossed. He does not like all this talk of fields and energies. He likes results. You're sure this will work? Milton asks. If your reports are accurate, Roth says, this Emperor is like a man standing in a lightning storm, but the lightning is in his blood. This device creates a counterfield, a place where that lightning cannot flow. If we can trap him in it, we can render him manageable. Manageable, Milton repeats. He imagines the giant in shackles, the president shaking his hand, the respect of men who once called him just another hired gun. Let's find out, Milton says. Roth nods. His assistant throws another switch. Across the city, the Emperor feels something clamp down on the air. For a second, his light flickers. His senses dull. The far horizons he always feels, the hum of distant mines, the whisper of the warp, fade like someone slammed a door. He staggers. Arthur, half asleep, jerks up. You all right? He asks. The Emperor's halo sputters. For the first time since he arrived, he feels small. Someone is trying to cage me, he says. He reaches out with the senses he has left, finds the source, a crude, pulsing knot of force at the edge of the city. Stay here, he tells Arthur. Like hell, Arthur says, grabbing his gun. They move through the alleys like shadows. The closer they get, the heavier the air feels around the Emperor. His steps slow. His armor feels like it weighs as much as a house. In the warehouse, Roth's machine hums louder. We're seeing fluctuations, the assistant says nervously. Of course we are, Roth snaps. We've never had a subject like this. Milton stands by the open doors, watching the street. Do you feel that? He murmurs. Roth shivers. The hairs on his arm stand up. He's near, Roth says. Good, good. The Emperor turns the corner and sees the glow spilling from the warehouse. He steps forward and hits a wall. Not a real wall. There is nothing in front of him, but his foot refuses to move. His breath catches. His heart, which does not need to beat, suddenly feels every thud. Arthur almost runs into his back. What is it? Arthur whispers. Null, the Emperor says through clenched teeth. A dead place in the fabric of thought. Very crude, very dangerous. He pushes again. Pain lances through his spine. Golden light arcs and dies around his fingers. Inside, Roth's instruments spike. Contact, Roth shouts. We've got him at the edge of the field. Milton smiles, cold and slow. Keep him there, Milton says. We'll bring the rest of him in. Power scaling interlude. I, To the Emperor, this null field feels like ice on fire, burning away the parts of him that are more than flesh. It is not true anti-psychic tech like the black collars of his old Imperium, but this world's first clumsy step in that direction. Roth's machine uses the faint warp echo clinging to places the Emperor has touched, twisted through coils and iron to make a patch of reality that does not listen to minds. Within it, the Emperor is just a very strong, very stubborn man in heavy armor. If the field grows and spreads, his power here could be caged or slowly cut away. The Emperor leans his full weight forward. His boot scrapes the cobbles. It does not move past the invisible line. Light crackles around his fingers and dies. Arthur feels the wrongness on his skin. "So what now?" he asks quietly. "We go back. Tell Dutch there's a magic circle we can't cross." The Emperor stares at the warehouse. "Inside that building is a man who believes he can turn me into a tool," he says. "And a lawman who already is one. If they learn how to spread this dead field, they can strangle the future of your kind before it even starts. So we can't just walk away," Arthur says. "No," the Emperor says. "We cannot." He closes his eyes for a moment. "Step back," he tells Arthur. "As far as you can. If this works, it will hurt. If it fails, I do not want you caught in it." "I ain't leaving you," Arthur snaps. The Emperor looks at him. There is something like pride in his eyes. "You are stubborn," the Emperor says. "Good, but do it 20 steps back." Arthur curses under his breath and moves, boots crunching on the gravel. He stops behind a low stack of crates, close enough to see, far enough that he hopes it helps. The Emperor takes a breath. He pulls his light tight inside his skin, compressing power that usually spills in all directions. He remembers wars against the Citan, gods made of star hunger, and the black dampening fields they used. He survived those. "This is a bad copy of something I have already beaten," he tells himself. He sets his jaw and steps forward. It feels like walking into deep water. Every step takes 3 times the strength it should. His thoughts slow. The warp, which is always a bright storm just beyond his senses, goes silent. He feels alone in a way he has not felt for 10,000 years. Inside, Roth's needles jump. "Field distortion," the assistant cries. "Something's pushing in." Roth laughs, high and breathless. "Of course it is. That's the point." Milton stands with a shotgun in his hands, staring at the doorway. "Get ready," Milton says. "He comes in. I want every gun on him." The Emperor crosses the threshold. The air inside the warehouse is thick and humming. Coils and cages of metal surround a central space lined with chalk and strange symbols, Roth copied from old religious books. At the center, on a steel frame, sits a crude iron chair with straps. The Emperor feels the null field claw at him from all sides. His halo sputters and goes out. His armor's glow fades to dull metal. To Arthur, watching from the door, he still looks huge. But for the first time, he does not look like a god. He looks heavy. Dozens of rifles click as men in coats and work shirts aim at him from behind cover. Milton steps forward. "Well now," Milton says softly. "Look at you, angel in a cage." "Not yet," the Emperor says. His voice is steady, but his lungs burn. "You've built a trap with rotten wood." Roth steps out from behind a humming coil, eyes wild. "You feel it?" Roth asks. The silence. "Extraordinary, yes. All that. Extra. Shut out. Just you and your meat left." "You play with forces you do not understand," the Emperor says. Roth laughs. "That's science," he says. "If I only played with what I understood, I'd still be rubbing amber on fur." Milton's eyes never leave the Emperor's chest. "Here are your choices," Milton says. You sit in that chair nice and easy. We take a little of your blood, maybe a bit of that armor. You answer some questions. Or we start shooting your friends out there one by one until you do. The Emperor's gaze flicks, just once, to the doorway where Arthur hides. Arthur feels it, like a hand on his shoulder. "Don't come in," the Emperor's voice whispers in his head. "Whatever happens." Arthur's breath catches. He does not know if he is hearing words or feeling intent. Either way, he grits his teeth. Milton sees the glance, smiles. "Thought so," Milton says. "You ain't just wandering the earth alone. You picked a side. That makes this easy." He lifts his shotgun a little higher. "Sit down," Milton repeats, "or I start with the cowboy." The Emperor looks at the chair. He knows what happens to gods who let men bind them. They turn into icons, into tools, into lies. He has spent 10,000 years nailed to a throne, unable to move, his name used to justify horrors. He also knows what a blast of buckshot would do to Arthur's chest. Slowly, the Emperor walks toward the chair. Roth's hands shake as he signals the assistants. Wires are clipped, switches are checked. The hum climbs. "Do you know how much power you hold?" Roth breathes. "What we can do with just a little piece of you." "I know exactly what men do with power they do not earn," the Emperor says. "I have seen it." He sits. The iron is cold even through his armor. Straps slap across his wrists and ankles. They are thick, but they creak under the strain of his muscles. "Turn it up," Roth says. The hum climbs higher. The Emperor feels pieces of himself tear away, not out into the warp, but into nothing. He grunts despite himself. Outside, Arthur flinches as if hit. "Damn it," Arthur whispers. "Damn it all." Milton steps closer, shotgun still up. "You know what I like about you?" Milton says. "You scare the hell out of everyone. Rich men, poor men, my bosses. Folks don't scare that easy. That makes you a problem, and problems get solved." He aims the barrel at the Emperor's chest. "Tell me where Dutch is going," Milton says. "Tell me his plans. Tell me every way I can break him, or I see how many of these shots it takes to put you down." The Emperor's fingers twitch against the iron. He could call fire. He could call lightning. He could rip these men apart without moving. He has done it before. But the null field presses on his mind. Every time he reaches for the warp, it is like ramming his hand into a wall of knives. He can still feel the storm beyond, but the link is thin as a hair. If he pushes, he might break through. He might also tear himself in half. "Your law serves men like Cornwall," the Emperor says, voice strained. "If I give you what you want, you will not stop with this gang. You will build cages for every man who questions your order." "That's right," Milton says. "That's peace." "Peace is not quiet graves," the Emperor snarls. Milton shrugs. "From where I sit, the ground don't care why folks are under it." He pulls the trigger. The blast slams into the Emperor's chest. Armor flares. Gold cracks. Pain lances deep, not just through flesh, but through the faint warp line still touching him. He feels the shot as a bright point of darkness burrowing into his being. Arthur bites down on a shout. Blood blooms on the Emperor's armor, dark against dull gold. The Emperor throws his head back, jaw clenched. He does not scream. He has been torn apart by gods. A shotgun is nothing, but it still hurts. He feels a whisper slide along the edge of his mind. "Look at you," a voice purrs. "Mighty thing, reduced to meat and metal. All because you cling to rules you wrote for yourself. Let go. Take what is yours." The voice is slippery. It has no single tone. Sometimes it sounds like a child. Sometimes like Horus. Sometimes like Dutch. You could turn this whole city to glass with a thought, it says. You could break these chains, break these men, break this law. You could take this world now, shape it right, before they crawl to the stars and make the same mistakes. All it takes is one step, one little step. Let them worship you. Let them fear you as they should. You were born to rule, not to beg. Milton cocks the shotgun again. Second shot goes in the head, Milton says. Start talking. Arthur cannot stand it. He steps into the doorway, gun drawn. Let him go, Arthur yells. Every rifle in the room swings toward him. Arthur, no, the Emperor starts. Too late. Milton smiles. Dutch's boy, he says. You always did have bad timing. He swings the shotgun toward Arthur. The Emperor moves. He rips his left arm up. The strap snaps with a crack. The null field howls in his nerves. He lunges, taking the second blast square in the shoulder meant for Arthur. The impact twists him. The chair skids. The iron frame splinters. Arthur fires. One of the guards drops. Then another. Bullets slam into the Emperor's side and glance off his armor. Others hit meat. Pain stacks on pain. Roth screams at the assistants. Keep the field stable. Keep it. The Emperor roars. He reaches past the knives into the thin line still touching the warp. He grabs hold of it with everything he has. It is like shoving his arm into lava and ice at once. Part of him tears away and burns, but he gets a grip. Golden light explodes from his chest. The null field buckles. Coils burst, hurling shards of metal. Glass shatters. Men scream as their rifles fly from their hands, ripped away by invisible force. Milton is flung into a stack of crates. Roth hits the floor, glasses askew. The Emperor stands, ripping the last straps free. His armor is cracked and smoking. For a moment, his halo flares back into life, brighter than ever. He could end them all now. He sees Milton, scrambling for his gun. Roth reaching for a switch. Dozens of men, some guilty, some just paid to stand there, all staring at him in pure animal terror. He also sees Arthur at the door, eyes wide. He sees Jack, small and laughing, up on his shoulders days ago. He sees Lenny, who still has all his days ahead of him. He sees nameless children in St. Denis alleys, their souls like small candles. The whisper pushes harder. Burn them, it urges. Burn this rot out. Start clean. No more compromise. No more lectures. Just you and your will. For a heartbeat, he wants it. He wants to let go. To stop holding back. To stop worrying about side streets and bystanders and the next 10,000 years. To just be power. No, he says. He crushes the power in his fist and slams it down into the floor. The blast goes downward. Stone cracks. The floor buckles. The whole building jumps. Beams splinter. The roof sags. Dust fills the air. Arthur, out, the Emperor shouts. Arthur grabs the nearest support and hauls himself backward into the alley as the warehouse starts to fall. He hears men yelling, coughing, some praying. Milton staggers to his feet, head bleeding. He sees the Emperor through the dust, still standing in the collapsing room, holding up a beam with one shoulder. Their eyes meet. This isn't over, Milton snarls. He dives through a side door as the wall gives way. The Emperor shoves the beam aside and lurches toward the door where Arthur waits. The null field sputters and dies as coils crumble. He makes it to the threshold, then drops to one knee. Arthur grabs his arm. Even through the armor, he can feel the heat. Come on, Arthur grunts. You ain't dying in a damn warehouse. They stumble into the night as the building crashes down behind them in a roar of stone and metal. Codex note. A null field wound tears at the space where a psyker touches the warp. It does not heal like flesh, and each attempt to use power again risks ripping it wider. They make it back to the safe house in St. Denis before dawn. The Emperor lies on a table stripped of everything but his lowest layer of armor. His chest and shoulder are a mess of torn flesh and cracked gold. The shells Roth used carried bits of Null Field with them. Where they passed, his light feels thin and frayed. Reverend Swanson prays under his breath, hands hovering uselessly. "I don't even know what to pray for," Swanson whispers. "Just talk," Arthur says. "He'll hear you, somehow." Hosea stitches what he can. "Never thought I'd be sewing up a..." "Whatever he is," Hosea mutters. "Skin's tough as old leather, and this metal ain't like anything I've seen." The Emperor's eyes are half closed. He hears them all, but their voices are far away. In his mind, he floats. The warp is still there. Storms of thought and feeling, colors that have no name, shapes that carry old hate. But where his soul touched it once, like a broad, burning sun, there is now a jagged break. The whisper comes again, softer now. "You could heal this," it says. "Just take more. Open wider. Let me in. I'll pour power through you until you shine again. No more limits. No more pain." He sees visions it sends. St. Denis bowing as he walks its streets. Every factory turned to a temple of human glory. Every child fed. Trains that fly. Guns that never miss. Outlaws turned into shining warriors in armor like his, riding steel beasts across the plains. He sees Dutch crowned as a local king under his banner, Milton broken and kneeling. Roth's machines turned into loyal servitors. "All you must do," the voice says, "is stop pretending anyone else's will matters." He thinks of terror. He thinks of trillions chanting his name, burning worlds in his honor, while he sits rotting on a throne, unable to move, his will twisted into 1,000 excuses for cruelty he never wanted. He thinks of this tiny boy, Jack, drawing a picture of him in the dust with a stick, halo crooked, smile too big. "I do not want to be a god," he says. He says it to the whisper, to the warp, to himself. "I wanted to be a father." The whisper hisses like steam. "Then watch your children burn," it snaps. Again. It withdraws. He is left in silence, hanging over a dark ocean. A small light appears. Not bright, not burning, just a single candle in all that dark. It is a memory, but not his. It is Arthur's. Arthur sitting by the fire, turning the pages of his journal. His hands are dirty. His face is tired. He writes a simple line. "I don't know if God is real, but I seen a man in gold today, and he tried to save people he didn't even know. Maybe that counts for something." The Emperor feels warmth from that tiny faith. Not worship, not fear, just a simple human hope that someone might try to do right. He reaches for it. He grounds himself in it. He feels Reverend Swanson's shaking voice wash over him in the real world. "Lord," or "Whoever you are," Swanson whispers, "please don't let this man die. We need him. I don't know what you are, sir, but you tried to help. That's more than I can say for a lot of so-called holy men." The Emperor's eyes open. Pain floods back, but the whisper does not. He breathes. "Water," he rasps. Arthur shoves a cup into Hosea's hand. Hosea lifts it carefully to the Emperor's lips. "You're a damn fool," Hosea says softly, "but I'm glad you're still with us." "Did Milton get out?" the Emperor asks. Arthur grimaces. "Looked like it," he says. "Him and that doctor." "Then the trap is not gone," the Emperor says. "It is only broken in one place." He pushes himself up on one elbow despite Hosea's protests. "They will build more," the Emperor says. "Smaller, stronger. They will lace them under streets, in banks, around men like Cornwall. They will build a net of silence for me. Then we move before they finish, Dutch says from the doorway. He has been listening, his face unreadable. We hit the bank, Dutch says. Big, fast, clean. Before they can string their wires around it, we get the money, we go. You are bleeding, the Emperor says. Your people are tired. Your enemies are learning. This will not be clean. It's our chance, Dutch insists. We can't run forever. Maybe we should, Hosea mutters. Change our names. Go smaller. Let this country eat itself without us in the middle of it. Live like rats, Dutch snaps. Cowering and hiding. That's not living, Hosea. The Emperor feels a new ache in his chest, separate from the wounds. He sees Dutch's fear hiding under all that talk of freedom. Fear of becoming small. Fear of losing the story he tells himself. Listen to him, the Emperor says quietly. He sees more clearly than you right now. Dutch turns on him. You think you know everything, Dutch says. You and your big words and your light. You don't know this country. You don't know what it's like to be hunted like a dog. To have nothing but your own wits and guns standing between you and the grave. I know what it is to be hunted by gods, the Emperor says, and to stand between them and my children. I know defeat. I know pride. I know exactly where it leads. Well, I ain't you, Dutch snaps. You had your empire. This is mine. He slams his fist into the table. We're robbing that bank, Dutch says. With or without you. He storms out. Arthur curses under his breath. Idiot, Arthur mutters. He ain't listening to nobody now. He looks at the Emperor. Can you fight? Arthur asks. Be honest. The Emperor flexes his fingers. Light flickers weakly around his hand. Yes, he says. But not as I did before. Every use of power tears at the wound. I can hold a shield, not a sun. I can push a few bullets aside, not stop an army. If I try more, I may lose the last of what I am. Then don't, Arthur says. Use what you got to keep yourself alive. We'll handle the rest. The Emperor shakes his head. If I let you carry all the weight, he says, I become another dead king on a throne. My burden is to spend myself wisely, not to hoard myself. You always talk like that, Arthur grumbles. Only on days that end in I, the Emperor says. Arthur stares, then barks out a short laugh despite himself. Up to now, the Emperor has let his power be a shield more than a sword. He has tasted the first real wound to his soul in ages, and he has turned away from the easy path of total control. Dutch, in fear and pride, is pushing toward a final gamble. The law, with Roth's new science, is weaving a net that can choke gods. The day of the St. Denis bank robbery dawns. The gang walks through the city in fine suits. The Emperor wears a dark coat over dulled armor, hat pulled low. His halo is nowhere to be seen. His steps are heavier than before. Inside the bank, the plan is simple. Dutch talks. Hosea distracts. Arthur and the others move on the vault. The Emperor stays near the front, eyes closed, feeling for any ripple of null field. He feels it at once. Thin bands of silence under the floor and in the walls. Roth has been busy. Small coils hidden in the stone. Not enough to shut him down completely. Enough to sting. Roth has been here, the Emperor murmurs. Arthur curses softly. Can you shut it off? Not without tearing the building apart, the Emperor says. Let's hope we're in and out before that matters, Arthur mutters. Dutch steps up to the counter, smile bright. Ladies and gentlemen, Dutch says, this is a robbery. It goes well at first. Clerks obey. Customers drop to the floor. The vault clerk trembles as Arthur pushes him toward the back. The Emperor stands in the main hall, watching doors and windows. He feels Milton before he hears him. The lawman's intent is a sharp knife in the air. "Now!" Milton shouts. The front doors slam open. Dozens of rifles swing in. Men in law badges, Pinkertons, soldiers. Milton at their front, Roth behind him clutching a small box humming with power. Roth flicks a switch. A wave of cold silence slams through the bank. The Emperor gasps. His knees buckle. His vision goes grey at the edges. The null coils hidden in the walls flare to life, linked to Roth's device. "I told you," Milton calls. "We'd be seeing each other again." Arthur yanks his gun on instinct. The world narrows to gunfire. Bullets scream through the air. The Emperor throws his hands up. Golden light sputters around them, forming a thin field. It holds for a second, maybe two. Each bullet that hits it tears a piece from him. The null field gnaws at the edges of the shield. He feels his wound tear wider. He drops to one knee, panting. "Get back," he shouts. Arthur, Dutch, and the others dive behind pillars and counters. Hosea, in the street, lifts his hands slowly as men surround him. Milton walks out to him, shotgun loose at his side. "You could have helped me," Milton tells Hosea. "Could have told me where Dutch was running. You chose." Hosea looks past him, toward the bank. "We're more ghosts than men now," Hosea says. "You can't catch ghosts with guns, son." Milton shoots him in the chest. Inside, the Emperor feels the death like a bell. Hosea's quiet, careful mind flares and goes out. It hits the warp like a faint spark and is gone. He roars. He slams his hand against the floor and pushes. The null field shivers. Stone cracks. A wave of force blasts outward, knocking lawmen off their feet, shattering windows. Roth staggers, clutching his device. Sparks jump from it. Smoke pours out. The field flickers. For a heartbeat, the Emperor's power is free. He could turn all those rifles to ash. He sees Lenny on the balcony, firing down, laughing with the wild joy of battle. He sees lawmen pinned behind wagons. He sees women screaming in the street. He pushes his shield out instead of fire. A dome of golden light snaps over the front of the bank, just as a second volley of bullets flies. The shots hit the shield and dig into it like teeth. The Emperor grits his teeth and holds. "Go," he shouts. "Rooftops." Dutch drags Arthur toward the back stairs. "We can't leave you," Arthur shouts. "You can," the Emperor growls. "And you must. I will hold as long as I can." "Then you die," Arthur yells. "Maybe," the Emperor says. "Better me than the children outside." Dutch pulls harder. Arthur stumbles after him, cursing. They burst out onto the roof, into gunfire and smoke. Lenny joins them, grinning. "Hell of a mess, huh?" Lenny shouts. "Just keep moving," Arthur yells. They race across the rooftops under a hail of bullets. Behind them, the Emperor stays in the shattered front hall, kneeling, both hands pressed to the floor. The shield strains. It keeps the worst of the fire from tearing through the back of the bank, where staff and customers cower. It stops some bullets from reaching Dutch and Arthur as they run. Each impact is a hammer on the Emperor's soul. Roth's device whines. The null field surges and cuts. The Emperor feels pieces of himself flake away like ash. His vision blurs. He drops one hand, then the other. The shield collapses. A last volley of bullets tears into the bank. Screams rise. Up on the rooftops, Lenny pauses at the edge to fire back. A single shot from below hits him clean. He falls without a sound. Arthur turns and sees Lenny's body lying still on the rooftop. For a second, the world goes silent. Then Dutch grabs his arm and hauls him away. "No time," Dutch shouts. "We gotta go." They escape in the chaos, down ladders and alleyways, to the docks, to the boat that will carry them away. John is taken. Hosea and Lenny are dead. St. Denis burns behind them. On the deck, Arthur looks back at the city. Smoke rises. Bells ring. Somewhere in that mess, Milton stands over the wreck of the bank, breathing hard. Wrath kicks at a broken coil in frustration. And the Emperor. Arthur does not see him. He turns to Dutch. "Where is he?" Arthur demands. "Where's the Emperor?" Dutch looks away. "He bought us time," Dutch says. "That's all we needed." Arthur stares. "You left him," Arthur whispers. "We all got to make sacrifices," Dutch says. He knew that. Arthur almost hits him. "You don't get to talk about sacrifice," Arthur snarls. "You never the one left behind." Dutch's hand goes to his gun. The ship rocks as it pulls away from the dock. "We're past arguing," Dutch says. "We either move forward or we drown." Arthur looks at the dark water and thinks maybe drowning would be simpler. In the ruined bank, under broken beams, the Emperor lies half buried in stone. He is not dead. His body is battered. Holes punched through his armor show torn, slowly mending flesh. But the worst wounds are inside. His link to the warp feels like a frayed rope dangling over an abyss. Boots crunch on broken glass. Milton stands over him, shotgun still in hand. Wrath hovers at the edge of the shattered floor, eyes wide, hands trembling. "Well," Milton says, "you ain't easy to kill. I'll give you that." The Emperor looks up at him. "You shot a man who only wanted a quiet life," the Emperor says. His voice is hoarse but steady. "That is who you are." "Hosea knew what he signed up for," Milton says. "All of you did. You rob. You kill. You get. Hunted. Simple." He nudges the Emperor's leg with his boot. "Chain him," Milton tells the men behind him. "Get your device working again, Doc. We're taking him to a place with thicker walls." Wrath swallows. I need time," he says. "The field is unstable. The coils—" "Fix it on the way," Milton snaps. "I ain't leaving this prize lying in a pile of rubble." As they struggle to put chains around the Emperor's limbs, he closes his eyes. He is too weak to fight them all now, without tearing the last of his soul threads. If he does that, he will be a mindless bomb at best, a singing idol at worst. The whisper tries one last time. "Let me in," it croons. "Just for a little while. I'll heal you. I'll break their guns. I'll lift you up. You can shut me out later. You always think you can, don't you?" He thinks of the throne, of 10,000 years of later. "No," he says. He lets the chains close. He does not struggle as they drag him out. Far away, on the dark sea, Arthur leans on the rail of the ship. He feels something twist inside his chest, like a thread snapping. He does not know what it is. He writes in his journal anyway. "Feels like we lost more than Hosea and Lenny today," he scrawls. "Feels like something big and bright went out." The ship sails on toward the storm. The world of Red Dead Redemption is about to swallow the gang in jungle and fever and betrayal. The Emperor, wounded and chained, is in the hands of law and new science. The warp waits hungry around them all. The prison is not like any the Emperor has seen. It is small, human. Stone walls, iron bars, a high window with thick glass. No spires, no chanting choirs, just the distant clank of boots and the echo of Milton's dry voice in another room. But the air hums. Wrath has built his machine into the bones of the place. Thin coils run under the floor, up the walls, into the ceiling. They hum at a pitch normal men cannot hear. To the Emperor, they are a constant thorn. He hangs from chains bolted into the stone. His feet barely touch the ground. His armor has been cut away in places to let Wrath attach thick iron cuffs with strange etched plates. Roth stands in front of him with a notebook. "Say something," Roth says. "No," the Emperor replies. "Excellent," Roth murmurs, scribbling. "Even your refusals are interesting." He flips back through his notes. "Each time you stir," Roth says, half to himself, "these coils sing. The field spikes. It's not just stopping you. It's interacting, tuning. And your eyes, they glow less now, almost like a coal going out." Milton walks in. "How's our guest?" Milton asks. "Contained," Roth says. "For now." "I need him talking," Milton says. "Not just hanging there like a butchered cow." Roth shrugs. "Ask him questions then," he says. "Just don't have him do anything large, unless you want this whole place to peel like an orange." Milton steps closer. "Your friends got away," Milton says. "They're on a boat, heading God knows where. But they ain't running forever. I'll find them. I always do." The Emperor looks down at him. "You think this is about one gang," the Emperor says. "One country, one time. You are wrong. It's about my job," Milton says. "And my job is to keep order. I don't care if the men who sign my checks are angels or devils, long as my check clears." "That is the worst kind of devil," the Emperor says. "The one who shrugs and says, 'Just doing my job,' while the world burns." Milton's jaw tightens. He steps closer, eyes hard. "World's always burning somewhere," Milton says. "Has been since folks crawled out the mud. You ain't changing that." "I tried," the Emperor says. "That is why I am here." Milton chuckles. "Then you failed," he says. "Maybe you ain't as important as you think." He turns to leave. "You still got a choice," the Emperor calls after him. Milton stops. "You can stop," the Emperor says. "You can walk away. You can throw down that badge and that gun and choose to be something other than a whip for men like Cornwall." Milton looks back over his shoulder. "You think I got that luxury?" Milton asks. "You think any of us do?" "Yes," the Emperor says. "All of you do. Every day." Milton's eyes flicker. For a heartbeat, the boy who once believed in the badge is there. Then he's gone. "I'll send someone in to feed you," Milton says. He leaves. The Emperor hangs in the humming dark. In another world, long ago and far ahead, his broken body sits on the golden throne of terror. Tubes run from his flesh into machines that hold back the warp. His eyes are empty sockets. His mind is a storm. He reaches for that place now. He follows the faint thread still connecting him to the warp. Even here in this null cage, he rides it out of his body, past the coils, past Roth's crude field, into the rolling sea of thought. Pain pulls at him every inch of the way, but he has lived in pain for ages. He moves. The warp around this 1899 Earth is thin compared to his own time. Fewer souls, less noise, but it is the same kind of sea. The same hungers lurk in its depths. As he pushes forward, a shape rises. It is tall, clad in gold. For a moment, he thinks he is seeing himself. Then he sees the differences. This figure's armor is twisted. Where his own bears the imperial aquila, this one's is broken, wings mangled. The halo behind its head is not a clean ring, but a jagged crown of blades. Its eyes burn not with steady light, but with wild flame. "You," the Emperor says. "Me," the other answers. Its voice is his, but sharper, crueler. "You are what you become if you accept the whisper," the Emperor says. "If you take the easy path." "I am what you already are," the twisted echo says. "Just more honest." It steps closer. The warp boils around its feet. "You say you don't want worship," it says, "but you built it anyway. You say you don't want to rule by fear, but you built an imperium that fears your name more than death." You say you care about every life, but you burn billions when it suits your plans. You call it necessary. That's what all tyrants say. I made mistakes, the Emperor says. I will not make them here. The Echo laughs. You already have, it says. You stepped into this world like a king inspecting a village. You picked your favorites, a gang of killers. You tried to steer them. You told yourself you were helping them be better, but you still chose them. You still think you can decide which humans matter the most. It gestures. The warp peels back like a curtain. The Emperor sees Arthur on the deck of the ship, coughing, talking quietly with Sadie. He sees John in Sisika Penitentiary, fists clenched, eyes stubborn. He sees Jack sleeping, thumb in his mouth, clutching a carved toy. He sees dozens of faces in St. Denis, workers, children, women bent under loads, men with empty eyes in factory lines. All of them matter, the Echo says. You can't save them all. Not here, not now. So you choose. That's what power is. Choice. You can pretend you're different, but you still put your thumb on the scale. Might as well admit it. Take the crown. Rule. It raises a hand. A sword of pure light appears, shaped like the one he once carried on the fields of Ulanor. But the light is wrong. Hungry. It cuts the warp itself as it moves. Take it, the Echo says. We can burn this world clean together. No coils, no null fields, no laws but ours. The Emperor looks at the sword. He sees terror again. Not the golden dream he had, but the cracked, dirty, crowded world under the rule of his corpse. He sees shrines of his own face. He hears priests screaming his name as they sacrifice children to fix a broken engine. His hand twitches. He remembers Arthur, holding out coffee on a cold morning and saying, "Camp rules say, if you're standing around in the morning, you hold a cup." He remembers Sadie, wiping blood from a knife, saying, "We ain't charity workers, we're outlaws." He remembers Swanson's shaking prayer, Lenny's laugh, Hosea's sigh. He remembers Jack's drawing. "I will not be your god," he says again. He does not take the sword. The Echo's eyes flare. "Then you'll lose them," it says. "You'll watch Dutch tear them apart. You'll watch Milton hang them. You'll drift back to your throne with their deaths on your conscience, same as all the others." "So be it," the Emperor says. "Better their deaths mean something they chose than their lives be puppets on my strings." The Echo snarls and lunges. They clash in the warp. It is not like a physical fight. There are no true swords, no fists. There are choices, memories, wills slamming into each other like storms. The Echo hurls images of victory, empires that work neat and clean, because everyone is afraid enough to obey. The Emperor counters with small, quiet acts of kindness. A bread crust shared, a hand offered, a law bent to save a life instead of crush it. The Echo cuts with pride. You are better. You know better. Use it. The Emperor holds with humility. I am powerful, not perfect. I must earn every trust. Each clash tears at his wound. The null field's edge scrapes every time he reaches for the warp. At last, something huge stirs beyond them. A shape like a continent of light. A throne that is also a mountain. A golden city stretched across a dying world. The Echo recoils. "Not yet," it hisses. "You haven't earned this." The light surges. The twisted Echo is blasted backward, dissolving into shards of hate and fear and old habits. The Emperor is pulled, not sideways, but up. For a moment, he stands on the steps of the golden throne. The real one. Thousands of robed figures kneel below, their faces turned up in worship. Golden armored custodians stand like statues, their spears taller than tanks. Blanks, souls without warp presence, stand near, their very being like holes in the storm. At the top of the stairs, on the throne itself, His own broken body sits. It is a corpse that refuses to fall. Machines thrum around it. Cables like veins run out into the depths of terror, holding back tides of demons. The eyes are empty. The mouth is slack. Yet a vast mind still hangs above it, tattered and bright. It looks at him. There are no words, no sound, but he understands. This is what his first path built. This is what happens if he keeps choosing empire over trust, control over teaching, fear over hope. The supreme authority here is not his will. It is the sum of 1 trillion human prayers, fears, and lies wrapped around his name. It presses a message into him. You cannot fix what I am, but you can change what I was. You can send a different story down the line. He feels operating limits settle on him like chains and like armor both. You may not make a throne here. You may not demand worship. You may not burn a city to save a gang. You may spend your power only to shield, to heal, to open paths. Each time you do, you will burn a little more of yourself. When you are ash, you will be gone. You will not get another throne. He bows his head. I accept, he says. The light fades. He falls back into his body. His eyes snap open. The hum of the coils is louder than ever. The pain in his wound is a steady roar. But there is a new clarity in his mind. A line he will not cross. He tests the limits. He sends a tiny thread of power to the lock on his chains. It sparks, then dies. The cuffs stay shut. The coil field bites. Good. He will not break out by brute force. He will have to do it the hard way. Footsteps approach. A guard opens the door to bring him food. Behind the guard stands someone unexpected. Reverend Swanson. He looks sober for once. Eyes clear. Clothes rumpled but clean. I told them I was here to bless the prisoner, Swanson says. They believed me. Folks always let a preacher into places they shouldn't. The guard snorts. Don't take long, he says. And don't get too close. You've seen what he can do. He leaves the tray and steps back out, leaving the door half open. Swanson steps close. You look worse, Swanson says softly, and somehow, better. I have been reminded of my place, the Emperor says. That is good for a man. Swanson swallows. I don't know much about your big wars and thrones and all, Swanson says. But I know this. Dutch and Arthur and the others. They're still alive, for now. They need you. I cannot tear these walls down without killing half this town, the Emperor says. Good thing I ain't asking you to, Swanson says. He reaches into his coat and pulls out a small metal object. It is a key. Woman at the jail likes to talk, Swanson says. Couple drinks in her, and she was telling me all about these new locks they got. All the same. All real proud of them. Let me see the keys once. I still got a good memory for shapes. He steps around behind the Emperor and fumbles with the cuffs. Took me a while to file this from scrap, Swanson mutters. Lot of cold nights. Lot of praying. The lock clicks. The cuff snaps open. The Emperor looks at him. Why? He asks. Swanson shrugs. Because you tried, Swanson says. You're the only man I ever seen with that much power who didn't look pleased about it. That's worth something. He moves to the other cuff. You get out of here, Swanson whispers. You go find them. You do whatever you think is right. That's between you and your God. Or yourself. Whatever. The second cuff opens. The Emperor drops to his knees. His legs shake. He's been hanging for days. Swanson grabs his arm. Easy, Swanson says. One step at a time. They move to the door. A guard steps in, surprised. The Emperor raises a hand and stops. Shield, not sword. He sends a tiny nudge of power, more like a breath than a shove. The guard's eyes glaze. He slumps against the wall, snoring. I did not change his mind, the Emperor says. I only gave his body rest. However you want to dress it up, Swanson says. We should hurry. They slip through the halls, down side stairs, out into the night. The coils in the walls buzz, chasing after his retreating presence, but the field weakens with every step. Outside, swamp air hits his face like a wet blanket. The stars are bright. The Emperor breathes deep. He looks at Swanson. Thank you, he says. You have done a great thing. Swanson snorts. I broke a man out of jail, he says. Pretty sure that's the opposite of a great thing accord. He stops listening. Distant thunder, not weather, cannon. Somewhere out on the water, guns are firing. The Emperor closes his eyes. He feels the ship where Arthur and the gang ride. He feels the storm closing around them. He feels smaller stories of rebellion on a distant island called Guam. They are in danger, the Emperor says. Swanson nods. Course they are, he says. They always are. The Emperor looks at his hands. He knows what he can and cannot do now. I have to go, he says. Further than these swamps. Further than this world in a way. Swanson blinks. Well, he says, if you're taking a trip to heaven or wherever, say a word for me. You already did that yourself, the Emperor says. Tonight. He steps out into the dark. He does not cut a new path through the warp this time. He follows the old one, the scar he left when he arrived. It is easier now and harder. Easier because it is there. Harder because he is smaller. He walks it anyway. The swamp falls away. He stands for a brief moment, in a place that is no place. A corridor of gold light linking this world to the far future and far past. Along its walls, he sees flickers. Arthur, on Guam, dragging himself through mud with fever in his veins. Dutch, eyes wild, holding a gun on a local rebel. John, in chains, staring out at grey water. Micah, whispering in Dutch's ear. He keeps walking. At the end of the corridor, the golden throne waits again. The supreme authority that is not him, but built around him. This time, he does not stand at the foot of the stairs. He kneels. I understand, he says. I cannot undo what I become. But I concede a different story here. One where men see me as an example, not an idol. One where power defends instead of rules. The throne does not answer with words. It answers with limits. You may step down this corridor one more time, it says. Once back to them. Once back here for good, when your work is done. You may not walk it forever. You get one pilgrimage, one return, one farewell. He accepts. I will not run from judgment, he says. When it is time, I will sit where I belong. The light pulses. He turns and walks back down the corridor. On the way, something stirs. A shape steps out of a side thread of reality. It is tall, but slimmer than he is. Wears a coat, carries a revolver. Its hat is tipped low. Under it is a face that looks very much like his if he had lived in this world. If he had been born on some frontier farm instead of long before history. I'm you, the figure says, if you never left. If you just picked up a gun and tried to fix what you can see. Another mirror, the Emperor says. Not twisted this time, the mirror replies. Just less. Simple. You help a few folks, kill a few bad men, die in a shootout somewhere. Stories die with you. You woke just to tell me that, the Emperor asks. The mirror tips his hat up. There are tired lines around his eyes. To tell you, there's a path where you don't become a throne, the mirror says. Where you're just a man. You won't save everyone. You might not even save yourself. But you won't drag a whole galaxy under you neither. The Emperor smiles, small and sad. That sounds almost peaceful, he says. Peaceful ain't for men like us, the mirror says, but maybe it's for the ones after us. They pass each other. The Emperor feels something settle inside him, like a compass needle finding north. He knows now what he can be here. Not king, not God, just a man with a big gun and a bigger burden, trying to make better choices than last time. Power scaling, interlude to 2. From now on, each time the Emperor reaches into the warp in this world, he pays a clear price. Small acts, nudging a bullet, lending strength, easing pain, cost him fatigue and a little more of his fading link to the future throne. Big acts, shields around whole streets, blasts that could level a building, would tear chunks from his soul and shorten the time he has before he must return to his seat in the far future. He cannot mind control people or twist their wills. He can only shield, push, or calm bodies for a moment. His light is now a finite candle instead of an endless sun. When it goes out, there will be no second throne waiting. He steps off the corridor and into a new morning. Warhammer. The air is heavy and wet. Jungle presses close. Gunfire cracks somewhere in the distance. The Emperor stands on a sandy path, his boots sinking into hot dirt. Arthur lies nearby under a rough tent, skin slick with fever. Sadie sits beside him, wiping his forehead with a rag. She looks up, eyes widening. "You," she breathes. Arthur blinks blearily. "That, you real?" he mutters. "Or is this just the malaria talking?" The Emperor kneels beside him. "I am real," he said. "For now." He lays a hand lightly on Arthur's shoulder. He could burn the sickness out with one deep reach into the warp. He does not. He sends just enough strength to Arthur's body to help it fight. Heat flares under his palm, then settles. Arthur's breathing eases. "I ain't dead yet," Arthur mutters. Disappointing. Sadie laughs, a short, sharp sound. Then her face hardens. "Dutch is losing it," she says. "He's talking to the locals like he's their damn king. We're going to use this," he says. "Turn their war into our way out. Folks are dying." He don't seem to care much. The Emperor nods. He has felt Dutch's mind shifting like sand in a strong wind. He stands. "Where is he?" the Emperor asks. "Village, other side of the hill," Sadie says. "Playing hero or devil. Depends on your angle." The Emperor walks. The jungle parts around him, leaves brushing his armor. Birds fall silent as he passes. Insects hum, their simple minds like tiny sparks. He comes into a clearing. Dutch stands on a crude platform, talking to a small group of island rebels. His hands move in wide arcs. His smile is bright and feverish. "We help you," Dutch says. "You help us. You get your island back from those rich bastards, and we get a boat. Simple. Fair." The rebels murmur. Some nod. Some look unsure. Leaders stand a little apart. Their faces aligned, eyes sharp. They know a man selling a story when they see one. The Emperor steps into the open. Dutch's words falter. "Well, look who it is," Dutch says. "Back from the dead after all." "Not yet," the Emperor says. "But I've seen where I end." He looks at the rebels. "I know men like the ones who rule you now," the Emperor says. "They take land and lives and call it order. I have fought them on 1,000 worlds." The rebels' eyes sharpen. "You fight with us?" one asks in halting English. "I will stand between your children and their bullets," the Emperor says. "But I will not trade one tyrant for another." He looks at Dutch. "You will not use these people as pawns," the Emperor says. "No more than they already must be." "Who are you to tell me that?" Dutch snaps. "You who dropped out of the sky and started preaching. You don't own us." "I do not own anyone," the Emperor says. "That is the point." They stare at each other. "Men like Cornwall won't stop," Dutch says. Men like Milton won't stop. We gotta hit back, hard. We gotta make them so scared they never come after folks like us again. You cannot scare greed, the Emperor says. You can only starve it and teach others to stop feeding it. You say that like you ain't never killed a rich man, Dutch says. I have killed more than I can count, the Emperor says. Rich, poor, in between. I tell you this because I know where it leads. A pile of bones and a throne built on top of it. Dutch's eyes shine with anger and something like hurt. You keep talking about thrones, Dutch says. Maybe that's all you know. Maybe that's all any of you big men ever see. He jumps down from the platform. You want to help these folks, Dutch says. Fine, help them. I'm going to get my people off this rock, with or without you. He stalks away. One of the rebel leaders watches him go, then looks at the Emperor. We need guns, she says simply. We need someone to stand when the soldiers come. You do that, I don't care what you call yourself. I will stand, the Emperor says. And he does. When soldiers march through the jungle, he walks in front of the rebels. He does not tear them apart with fire. He walks forward, calm as a mountain, bullets sparking off his dulled armor. His presence shakes the men's hearts more than any miracle. Some run. Some drop their rifles. The few who still fire, he allows the rebels to deal with. He only reaches out a few times. Once to bend a bayonet away from a child. Once to steady a collapsing hut. Once to catch a falling man before he hits a rock. Each small act costs him. He feels it, but he keeps the price low. He shows the rebels how to fight smarter, how to use cover, how to hit supply lines instead of charging straight into lines of fire. He does not give them victory. He gives them a chance to earn it themselves. At night, he sits with Arthur and Sadie by the fire. Dutch is worse, Arthur says quietly. He ain't just talking big anymore. He's hearing things. Seeing betrayal in every shadow. He thinks you're here to take his people from him. I am here to keep his people from following him over a cliff, the Emperor says. Same thing far as he's concerned, Sadie says. He don't want folks thinking for themselves. He wants them thinking like him. The Emperor stares into the flames. I built men like that, he says. I called them Primarchs. Sons I made to lead my armies. Most of them broke under the weight of what I asked them. Some turned on me. One almost killed me. You got kids? Arthur asks, surprised. Not the way you think, the Emperor says. But I was a father. A bad one mostly. Arthur pokes the fire with a stick. I ain't been much better, Arthur says. Jack looks at me like I'm something. Like I'm good. Some days I feel like I don't deserve that. Good fathers are not perfect men, the Emperor says. They are men who keep trying even when they fail. You talk like you're including yourself now, Sadie says. For once, he says. They share a quiet moment, the way off Guarma comes, as in the old story, with a stolen ship and a bloody fight. The Emperor helps, but he lets the others do most of the work. They need to feel their own hands on the wheel. On the deck of the ship, heading back to America, Arthur leans next to him. You could have flown us, Arthur says, or whatever it is you do. Yes, the Emperor says. Why didn't you? Arthur asks. Because then, when I leave, you would not know how to sail, the Emperor says. Arthur snorts. I don't know how to sail now, he says. You know how to try, the Emperor says. That is enough. They return to a world closing in on them. The law has not slept. Milton and Ross have not given up. Roth's notes survived the bank's collapse. Small null devices now ride on belts and sit under gallows. The net tightens. The gang moves camps again, deeper into the woods, into Beaver Hollow. Dutch grows more haunted. Micah whispers more poison. John comes back from Sisika with scars. The Emperor watches it all. He cannot stop Dutch's slide without breaking his new vows. He cannot rip the fear and paranoia out of Dutch's mind. He can only speak, advise, and stand. He is no longer the sun. He is a lamp at the edge of a swamp, showing a narrow path. The next step will hurt. He knows it. He also knows he will take it. Rain drips from the rocks above Beaver Hollow. The gang's last camp is a cave dug into the side of a cliff, with a river roaring below. The woods are thick, dark and wet. Smoke from the small fire curls low under the stone roof. Arthur coughs into his hand and sees blood. He wipes it on his pants before anyone can notice. But the Emperor sees. He always sees. "You are dying," the Emperor says quietly. Arthur flinches. Well, that's one way to say good morning. They stand near the cave mouth, looking out at grey trees. The others move like ghosts behind them. John, newly freed from Sisika. Abigail, tight with worry. Jack, clutching his little toy. Sadie, sharpening her knife. Dutch, pacing. "You knew?" Arthur asks. "Yes," the Emperor says. "Since the doctor told you, since before. Your lungs are full of shadows. Your body fights. It will lose." "You can't fix it?" Arthur asks. "Not with your tricks." The Emperor looks at his hands. "I could burn it out," he says. "If I used all that is left of my power, for a time, you would be strong. Then the wound in my soul would rip open. I would be dragged back to my throne in the far future. I would leave this world with no shield at all." Arthur nods slowly. "So if you save me," Arthur says, "you leave everyone else?" "Yes," the Emperor says. "If I save only you that way, I fail everyone else. If I save no one, I fail you." Arthur laughs, harsh and tired. "Hell of a choice," he says. "Reckon I'd hate to be you." "I hate to be me most days," the Emperor says, and there is no humour in it. Arthur looks out at the trees. "How long I got?" Arthur asks. "Not long," the Emperor says. "Weeks, maybe a month. Less if you keep running and fighting." Arthur coughs again. "We ain't got weeks anyway," he says. "Not with Milton out there, not with Micah whispering in Dutch's ear." He glances back at the cave. "I don't want to die," Arthur says, "but I ain't sure I want to live if it means leaving John and his boy in the mud." The Emperor studies him. "In my time," the Emperor says, "we have a saying, from each what they can give, for all what they can be." "That's some fancy future talk?" Arthur asks. "It means this," the Emperor says. "You do all the good you can, for as long as you can, for as many as you can. Then you stop, because you must. Then others walk after you." Arthur lets that sit. "That it?" he asks. "That your big code?" "Yes," the Emperor says. "Simple, hard, like most true things." Arthur nods once. "All right," he says. "Then I'll do that, long as I can stand." They do not get much time. That afternoon, Milton comes. He does not come with rifles blazing, not yet. He comes with a few men and a white cloth on a stick, riding up the path to Beaver Hollow. The Emperor feels him before he sees him. That sharp, knife-like intent. The hum of null devices at his belt and in his men's pockets. Arthur and the Emperor walk out to meet him. Dutch, Micah, Sadie, and a few others stand nearby, hands on guns. Rain soaks hats and coats. Milton raises a hand. "Easy," Milton calls. "I come to talk." "You ain't never done anything easy, Milton," Arthur says. Milton's eyes flick to the Emperor. "You broke out," Milton says. "Doc Roth was real upset about that. Almost lost his grant money." "Roth is not here. He sits far away in a city room now, talking to men in suits who want weapons from his work, not understanding the coil sing wrong. He is already half mad from listening. You shot an unarmed man in the street, the Emperor says. You burned a bank. You built a cage for a soul. You have nothing I want to hear. Milton smiles thinly. I got Abigail, Milton says. Arthur's stomach drops. What? Arthur growls. Picked her up when she came down to town for supplies, Milton says. Easy enough. She thought she was being clever. We let her think it. She's sitting in a little shack downriver right now. My men with guns on her. I squeeze. She dies. Simple. Abigail struggles in a chair in that shack, rope around her wrists, gag in her mouth. She glares at Ross, who watches with cold eyes. That's between you and me, Arthur says. Let her go. Nothing between us but a rope and a branch, Milton says. Here's my offer. You and your angel ride down to the shack, alone. You turn yourselves over. You let Roth take his samples. You let me walk you into a cell. The rest of your people get to ride free. I'll tell my bosses the big fish were all we could catch. They'll accept that. Arthur looks at the Emperor. The Emperor looks at Milton. You would let Dutch go? The Emperor asks. Micah, the man who feeds you names? Milton's eyes harden. He gives himself away in that one flicker. Arthur sees it. So does the Emperor. Micah, Arthur says slowly. You been talking to Micah? Milton shrugs. Always someone ready to survive, Milton says. Always someone ready to sell the rest. That's the world. You know that. Dutch's face goes still. Micah's hand twitches near his gun. You're lying, Dutch says. You're trying to turn us against each other. Am I? Milton asks. Ask your own people where your last hideouts were found. Ask who was always one step ahead of me. Ask who never seemed to be there when it went real bad. Micah steps forward. Don't listen to him, Dutch, Micah says. He's trying to break us. You know me. I've been with you through all this. Dutch's eyes jump from Micah to Arthur to the Emperor. Rain falls harder. What if we don't come? The Emperor asks Milton. What if we ride the other way? Then Abigail dies, Milton says. Then I hunt you down, one by one. I start with the women and children. I make sure you hear about every rope, every bullet. You know I can. He is not boasting. He is just saying how it is. Arthur feels the choice sit heavy on his chest. He looks at the Emperor. If I go with him, Arthur says, you can get him out. John, Jack, Sadie, the rest. You can shield them. Give them time. Yes, the Emperor says. At a cost, but yes. And if we both go, Arthur says, you die in a cage. He keeps coming anyway. Maybe slower, maybe nastier. Yes, the Emperor says. Arthur nods. Then that's that, Arthur says. He steps forward. I'll come, Arthur says to Milton. But not alone. He puts a hand on the Emperor's arm. You're coming with me, Arthur says quietly. The Emperor looks at him, puzzled. You said your job is to stand between monsters and folk who ain't got guns big enough, Arthur says. Well, Milton's your monster same as mine. You come with me, we end him. Then you go get John out. You get Jack safe. That's how you spend what you got left, the Emperor thinks. It fits the code he chose. All the good he can, for as long as he can, for as many as he can. He nods. We ride, he says. Dutch starts to protest. You can't. You ain't running this no more, Dutch, Arthur snaps. You had your shot. This is my call. Dutch's mouth opens, closes. He looks at the Emperor. You're taking my best gun, Dutch says. You're taking my miracle. I am taking a man to do his last good work, the Emperor says. And your miracle was never yours. He turns to Sadie. When this is done, the Emperor says, Get John, Abigail, and Jack out. As far as you can. To a place with fields, a house. You know the one. Sadie nods, jaw hard. I'll get 'em there, Sadie says. You got my word. Arthur and the Emperor mount up. They ride with Milton's men through the rain, downriver to the shack. Milton thinks he has them. He underestimates how much a dying man and a fading god can still do. At the shack, Ross stands with a gun to Abigail's head. 4 other men wait with rifles. The river gurgles nearby. The air hums with null field from a small box on the table. Milton dismounts. End of the road, Milton says. Arthur swings down. The Emperor steps off his horse, slower, feeling the null buzz in his bones. This don't have to go bad, Milton says. You lay down your guns. You step into the wagon in back. We ride to town. You get a trial. You get a rope. Maybe the papers write some pretty words about you. That's better than most. Arthur looks at Abigail. She glares at him, shaking her head, tears in her eyes. Sorry, Arthur says softly. Couldn't see another way. Milton glances at the Emperor. As for you, Milton says, I don't know if we can hang you, but I intend to find out. He nods to Ross. Ross shifts his grip on the gun. The Emperor moves. He does not reach into the warp for fire. He reaches for time. For 1 second, he pushes his will out in a wide, soft wave. Not to freeze men's minds, but to make their bodies slow. Guns feel a little heavier. Fingers feel a little numb. Eyes blink a little too long. It costs him. His wound tears wider. Pain lances through his skull. His vision tunnels. But he buys that 1 second. Arthur uses it. He throws himself sideways, pulling his gun as he goes. He shoots Ross in the throat. The gun at Abigail's head goes wide. A bullet cracks past her ear and hits the wall. Abigail drops, rolling behind a barrel. The other men bring their rifles up, slow. The Emperor lunges. He takes 2 bullets in the side, another in the leg. He barely feels them. He slams into one man and sends him crashing into another. They fall in a heap. Arthur shoots the last one before he can fire. Milton fires both barrels at the Emperor. This close, the null-laced shot hits deep. It punches through armor, flesh, and the frayed link in his soul. The Emperor staggers. Golden light sprays from the wound like sparks. Arthur shoots Milton in the chest. Milton falls to his knees. He drops the shotgun. His hand goes to his wound. Blood spreads across his coat. He looks at Arthur and the Emperor, eyes full of hate and something like tired relief. You think this changes anything? Milton wheezes. Men like me, Ross, Cornwall. There's always more. You kill me. Another dog takes the leash. That's the world. You're right, the Emperor says. There will always be men like you. That does not mean we stop standing in front of them. Arthur steps closer. You could have walked away, Arthur says. You chose this. Milton spits blood. Just do it, Milton mutters. Arthur looks at the Emperor. The Emperor nods once. Arthur shoots Milton in the head. Silence. Abigail pulls the gag from her mouth and runs to Arthur. She grabs him, shaking. You damn fool, she says. You damn good fool. He coughs, hard. Blood flecks his lips. The Emperor leans against the wall. His vision blurs. His body is failing in more ways than one. The null shot in his chest has cut deep. His link to the warp is now a thread thinner than hair. You must go, the Emperor says. Dutch will not wait. Micah will whisper. The law will come. Get John and Jack away. What about you? Abigail asks. I got things to do, Arthur says. Mountain to climb. He looks at the Emperor. You coming? Arthur asks. Yes, the Emperor says. To the foot of the mountain. The top is yours. They ride back hard. At Beaver Hollow, everything falls apart much like it would have. Dutch and Micah accuse Arthur of betrayal. Arthur accuses Micah of being the rat. Fists fly, guns flash, the camp erupts. Into that chaos, the Emperor walks. He stands in the center, voice like a bell. Enough, the Emperor says. For a heartbeat, everyone freezes. Law is coming, the Emperor says. Army, Pinkertons. Men Roth taught how to carry silence on their belts. They are already on the ridge above. You can stay and die here. Or you can get the ones who still have a chance out. He points at John, Abigail, Jack. Go now, he says, up the back path. Sadie knows the way. Take what you can carry, leave the rest. John hesitates. What about you? John asks. I will stand, the Emperor says. I will hold the line as long as I can. Dutch snorts. Always ready to tell us what to do, Dutch says. Maybe we don't want to run. Maybe we make a stand. Show them what happens when they push us too far. Then you will die here to prove a point, the Emperor says, and your son will grow up alone. Dutch's eyes flick to Jack. For a second, they soften. Then Micah whispers something in his ear. Dutch looks away. I need to think, Dutch mutters. Arthur grabs John. No more time, Arthur says. You go. You take your family and go. Find that ranch. Raise that boy. Don't look back. John grips his shoulder hard. What about you? John asks again. Arthur coughs. Someone's got to buy you time, Arthur says. Reckon I'm about done being selfish. He looks at the Emperor. We buy it together, Arthur says. The Emperor nods. They push John, Abigail, Jack and Sadie toward the back of the cave. Gunshots crack in the trees above. Pinkertons and soldiers move through the woods toward Beaver Hollow, guns ready. Some of them wear small metal boxes on their belts that hum with a faint, ugly tone. Roth's new null charms. Crude, deadly. The Emperor steps out of the cave mouth and onto the ledge. He can feel the charms. They poke at the last threads of his power like needles. He knows if he reaches too far, they will cut those threads for good. He moves anyway. He plants his feet. He spreads his hands. He reaches into the warp one last time. It hurts. It feels like pulling a rope made of fire through his own chest. Each inch strips flesh from his soul. He sees the corridor to the throne flicker at the edge of his mind. The supreme authority waits. In the roar of bullets and the rising storm of light, he falls inward. He stands again before the throne. But this time, the vision is clear. 3 paths hang in the air before him like doors. In the first, he turns away from this world and steps back to his seat now. The corridor closes. Red Dead's timeline snaps into place. Arthur dies on the mountain. John escapes. Jack grows up hard and bitter. The Imperium of Man still rises in the far future, much the same as before, with all its rot and all its grim hope. His walk in 1899 becomes a brief dream that fades from memory. In the second, he cuts the corridor himself. He refuses the throne. He stays in this world as a free agent. He heals his wound by taking more power from the warp, not less. He becomes a full god here. Nations rise and fall under his hand. 1899 becomes 1999 with angels and steel saints. The future he knew never comes. A different, stranger humanity reaches the stars, torn between worship and rebellion. Millions live better. Millions die screaming. The warp grows fat on their fear of him. In the third, he steps back to the throne later. He spends everything he has here first, but only in line with new rules. He does not build a crown. He does not found a church. He does not take a throne. He shields, he heals, He opens doors. He lets men make their own choices and live with them. When he is done, he lets this world remember him not as a god, but as a hard, bright story about a man in gold who stood between bullets and children. That story seeps forward. In the far future, when priests scream his name, somewhere deep in their creed there is a quiet line about mercy and standing in front of guns. A small countercurrent in a sea of fear. Not enough to fix everything. Enough to give some lost soul a different way to see him. He sees the blood price of each path. Path 1. Arthur's death is lonely and bitter. Jon still makes it. The Imperium stays the same monster it was. Path 2. This world erupts in holy war. He saves more lives here and now, but the future becomes a maze of his own mistakes, with no throne to pin the warp. Humanity's soul tears in a different way. Path 3. Arthur dies, but with peace. Jon lives, because the time bought is enough. Jack grows with stories of a man in gold who helped his father, not as a god, but as a friend. The Imperium in the far future remains brutal, but tiny, stubborn sects remember that the Emperor walked once and did not command, but helped. He chooses. I will be a servant, he says. Sanctioned, bound by your law, not my pride. The throne's mind presses around him. Terms burn into his being. You will not seek worship. You will not rule a nation. You will not act for gold or glory. You will not unleash fire on a city, even to save your own life. You will spend your power only to shield the helpless, to heal, to give others a chance to choose. When your light is gone, you will return and sit, and not rise again. He bows his head. I accept, he says. A flame appears above his palm. It is not a sun. It is a lantern, small, steady, with 2 wings carved on its sides and a simple 5-pointed star above them. The Aquila and a frontier badge fused. This is your new sign, the throne's vast mind whispers without words. Let it be seen as a light, not a crown. He takes the lantern. He turns back to the ledge. Time snaps into motion. Bullets scream toward the cave. Men shout. Trees splinter. The Emperor thrusts the lantern out. A dome of soft, golden light blossoms over Beaver Hollow. Bullets hit it and slow, dropping like heavy rain. The null charms on belts spark and die. Roth's notes, far away, blacken at the edges, then crumble into ash as the ideas inside them unwrite themselves. He will be left with only half-mad scrawl, never able to build a full cage again. Within the dome, Jon, Abigail, Jack, Sadie, Charles, and the few who can still be saved run up the back path, horses pounding, packs bouncing. Outside the dome, Dutch and Micah argue in the mud. Come on, Arthur shouts to Dutch. You can still come with us. Dutch stares at him, wild-eyed. After everything, Dutch shouts back. After you turned on me. After you sided with him. He jerks his head toward the Emperor, whose armor now bears the little lantern symbol glowing at his chest. I never turned on you, Arthur says. You turned on us. Micah sneers. Let's go, Dutch, Micah says. We don't need them. We don't need him. Dutch looks at them all. At Arthur, coughing, thin. At the Emperor, shaking, holding up the dome with both hands like a man lifting the sky. At Jon, vanishing into the trees with his family. Something in Dutch breaks. Dutch says, I have to go. He turns away. He walks after Micah, leaving Arthur and the Emperor under the dome, leaving his dream in the mud. Arthur feels the hurt like a gunshot. The Emperor feels it too. It is the same hurt he felt when Horus raised his hand against him. Child against father, follower against leader, pride against love. It still hurts, the Emperor says, even when you know it is coming. Arthur coughs, almost laughs. Yeah, Arthur says. Reckon some pains you don't get used to. The dome shudders. The Emperor's legs tremble. His vision is full of white. I can't hold this forever, the Emperor says. When I let go, the law will rush in. Arthur nods. Then I better be where I'm meant to be, Arthur says. He turns toward the high path, the one that leads to the mountain where he will face Micah and Dutch. The Emperor looks at him. You are the best of them, the Emperor says. Not because you are pure, because you learned. Arthur shrugs, embarrassed. I was a bully once, Arthur says. Dutch taught me how to string words together. Hosea taught me how to think. You taught me it ain't all about me. He sticks out his hand. Thank you, Arthur says. The Emperor takes it. For trying, Arthur says. Even when you fail. They shake. Arthur walks away. The Emperor watches him go, every step a choice, every cough a clock. He holds the dome until he feels the last of John's group cross the ridge and vanish into the trees. Then he lets go. The light collapses like a bubble popping. Bullets rush in. Men shout. The Pinkertons charge. The Emperor is empty. He does not reach for fire. He reaches for stone. He slams his hands into the cliff face. Rock groans. The mouth of Beaver Hollow caves in. Boulders crash down, blocking the main way in, burying the spot where he stands. Dust and mud explode outward, knocking men off their feet. On the high path, Arthur staggers as the ground shakes. He looks back, eyes wide. He does not see the Emperor, crushed. He sees a last flash of gold under the falling rock, like a lantern going out. On the throne, far in the future, a small light flares above a dead man's brow and sinks in. He is home. He is bound. He does not rise again. But the story he seeded walks on two legs up a mountain. Arthur fights Micah. He loses in flesh. He wins in choice. He dies under the open sky, looking at a sunrise that seems a little brighter than it should be. For a moment, as his breath catches, he sees a tall figure in gold standing at the ridgeline, not reaching down, not changing what is, just watching. Arthur smiles. Guess that counts for something, he whispers. Then he is gone. John rides with his family. They find the ranch. They build a house. John works the land. He raises Jack. He tries, in his clumsy way, to be a better father than the men he followed. Sometimes, at night, by the fire, he tells Jack about Arthur, about Hosea, about Dutch in the early days, and about the man in gold who came out of the sky and stood in front of bullets. Mr. Marston, Jack asks once, small voice serious. Was he God? John pokes the fire. Nah, John says. He was just a man. A strange big man with more power than sense. But he tried to do right by us in the end. That's all any of us can do. Jack thinks about that. He draws little pictures of the man in gold in the dirt. His halo is crooked. His lantern has wings. Years later, after John is gone, older Jack rides through towns and hears drunken stories in saloons. Some say they saw a giant in armor on a battlefield once. Some say a man in gold walked down a railroad track and bent a train off it, with his hands to stop it crushing a wagon of children. None of the stories agree on details, but they all end the same way. He didn't take a throne, the tellers say. He just tipped his hat and walked on. Jack listens. He smiles. That sounds like him, Jack says. Far away in time, in the vast halls of the imperial palace, a low-ranking scribe finds an old half-burned scrap in a forbidden archive. It tells of a myth from Old Terra's Age of Steam, a story about a golden rider who walked with outlaws and shielded children from bullets. The scribe reads it twice, heart pounding. This is heresy, he whispers. The master of mankind would never stoop to such small works. He almost throws it into the recycler. Instead, he copies one line into his private notebook. The emperor is a shield, not just a sword, the line says. He underlines it. He does not preach it. He does not share it. But when he prays that night, he thinks of a lantern instead of a crown. In the swamps of Lemoyne, an old, sober Reverend Swanson tells a few folks in a small church about a time he saw an angel who said he was not God. Maybe, Swanson says, we should stop waiting for someone perfect to fix everything and start fixing what we can for the folks right next to us. That's what he did, far as I can tell. Some listen, most don't. That's all right. Stories are patient. The Pinkertons never figure out how they lost their edge. Ross lives. He carries a faint scar where Arthur's bullet went. He never quite trusts machines after that. Roth dies old and half mad, muttering about coils that sang of light before the angel took the song away. In the far future, the machines that hold back the war beat in time with a different rhythm. Less a drum of marching feet, more a slow, stubborn heartbeat. The throne still burns. The Imperium is still a brutal, desperate thing. But in some dark corner on some hive world, a guardsman stands up in front of a child when the shooting starts. He gets no vision, no voice. He has just heard somewhere a story about a man in gold who did the same a long, long time ago. He smiles, scared and proud, and says, "Be not afraid." Then he holds